my microphone. What? All right, let me see if I can switch that back. For some reason, it just kicked my microphone off. Oh well. So my mic's gonna sound like crap now, but that's all good. Do I sound all right?
Sound fine to me.
Okay. For some reason, it kicked me off my little
Okay.
mic, but
Yeah,
cool.
no problem.
Anyways, yeah. All right. So we're gonna get started. Hey, this is Brian Bailey here with Golf Cask, and we are doing our Between the Ears segment of Bottle Share. I do have again my Guinness Zero. Mike has put me onto this, and again, I have to say, as a non-alcoholic beer, it's actually pretty good. I can't complain about the flavor. Now, I did get razzed pretty good about a week ago. With them ripping on me for drinking Guinness Zero, but I don't care. I actually kind of enjoy it. So tonight we're going to be talking about kind of preparation and when an event coming up that is and you perceive as big, whether it's Quail Hollow just happened, you have the U.S. Open coming up in a couple weeks with Father's Day coming, or simply your member or your championship or state am. Sometimes there's events where we put a little more pressure or a little more emphasis on the season, and what does that do to my game? What should I prepare for, and what does that kind of look like? So I brought in two experts on this. Well, no, I couldn't find two experts, but I found these two instead. We got Dr. Mike. Mike, how are you doing today, buddy?
Doing great. I'm just going to try to do the best I can here today, Brian.
I appreciate that. And I have a good question. We'll kind of segue into this. Give me an event or something that stands out in your mind where you're either coaching or a player that kind of mentally you had to prepare or maybe didn't prepare well for a big event. Is there something that stands out in your coaching or playing experiences?
I guess I'll start. I can say that when I first started playing golf after the baseball career, I wanted to play competitively, but I really didn't know that much about it. And I got into a tournament, a state tournament, and that was really nerve-wracking, as I remember those feelings and thoughts of what am I doing here? I'm a baseball player. What am I trying to do out here competing against these players? And I didn't know the rules of the game very well. I remember one score I got really high because I didn't know the rules and I didn't take advantage of them correctly. I
Yeah.
I remember really being very cognizant of everybody around me, and my swing was very tight and the old guidey type swing, and I think I shot 100. And my typical score just by myself at that early period of time was probably 81, 82. So we're talking about 19. So that was a real great that woke me up to the
Yeah.
importance of the rules, number one, but also the importance of being able to get my stuff together before I went and competed again. I would say
That's a,
that was the most. Yeah, certainly I've had um, players who played in Q school and played in various very important tournaments to them. But I can say that if I've worked with somebody once and then they have a bigger tournament, then that they probably haven't got everything down yet, right? It's just one
right.
conversation, and so I can speak to a number of times where I've spoke to somebody once because parents said, "Hey, they got this big tournament coming up. Let's get you on the phone with Mike and see what you can do." Well, those are usually times where they still have a lot of anxiety and so on, and haven't really learned how to prepare properly. So those would be mine that come to mind. The good news is there's a lot of big tournaments that amateurs and so on and professionals will play today, but I feel like we get prepared, and so therefore it doesn't feel like it's such a tough scenario to be in. So
Yeah.
that would be how I would look at it.
I love knowing the rules. That's the
Yeah.
biggest gripe I have for any junior or anybody getting into golf. The rules are not there to punish you. I know they're a punishment because you did something to
Yep.
invoke a rule, but the rules are actually there to help you. And if you really understand the rules,
Yeah,
there are a lot of really, really good rules that can put you in some very advantageous positions
for sure.
opposed to true penalties. But no, I agree. I watched my son in a junior event, and the kid took a drop, and I'm just like, what the hell is
Yep.
he doing? I'm like, you got three options, and that's the worst of the three, and you just took it. I'm like, oh, that's life. Chris, how about yourself? Chris, welcome, and give us a good kind of an event you were coaching or playing in where maybe the moment got a little big for you.
Yeah. So, as I was thinking about this, I kind of go all the way back to high school, senior year, playing a really good baseball team that was going to go on to win the championship. And we really had no shot to beat this team. And we were average at best. And our coach, who was a really high level D1 college pitcher, said, you know what, we're going to warm up without a ball. And we're going to just do our normal warm up. And so we run out on the field and take our positions, and he throws up this imaginary ball and starts hitting the ball. And the second baseman runs across in front of the second base, almost towards the shortstop, and lays out and dives for this imaginary ball, jumps up, grabs it, hops, throws it sidearm to the first baseman, and he hits his glove with his hand and it pops. And then we throw it around the horn, and then he tosses up another one and hits this next one. And we're doing this, and this team actually started to stand up in the dugout and come out and was watching us like, what are these loony people doing, right? But what it gave us was this really huge amount of confidence. And even though we were somewhat prepared, we just weren't skillful enough to be able to beat this team really, and didn't have the batting averages and the fielding percentages to win. But it gave us this little bit of excitement that we could actually, we were doing really good things instead of worrying about missing the ball or doing things like that. So really, we prepared some of this beforehand, but the reality was it allowed us to really take that pressure, take that anxiety off, and just have fun in that moment. I mean, I remember the third baseman literally diving over the third base and grabbing this ball, this imaginary ball midair, and throwing it back. And we were all just hooting and hollering, having a great time. And it just took that pressure off of us just to go out there and have fun. And we actually only lost by 2 runs, and which was amazing because they were really good.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of going in thinking of all the things that could go wrong or how can we not mess this up, we actually went in there with a totally different mindset. And honestly, looking back, that makes a big deal in how you prepare for an event, what you do leading up to it, not just the day of, but maybe the months and weeks prior to. Because once you show up to an event, Mike, as you and both Brian know, you know what? You got the game you brought with you. And you need to learn how to adapt that to the changing conditions of the event and the course and all those kinds of things. So being free, reducing that stress, and knowing what is relevant in that moment made a big deal.
Cool.
No,
That's
that's
great.
good. I love that. It's kind of like Hoosiers, right? Where he brings out the tape measure. What's the height? It's the same. As if from baseline to baseline, it's the same court, right? It's that same thing. It doesn't matter. The game is the game. So that's cool. I've screwed up so much stuff coaching. I have too many stories of the moments getting bigger than the coaching staff. But I think the one I learned the most on is we played Stanford in regionals. So kind of collegiately as a team, and UVA is winning right as we speak the national championship. Right, I don't know if they'll hold on against Oklahoma State, but they do have the lead right now.
Awesome.
So we played out at Stanford at a regional. So the NCAA basically you got a regional play in to get you into the national championship. So regionals, it doesn't matter as long as you're a certain number team, you advance in. So we got sent all. Of course, we're an East Coast team. We get sent all the way out to Stanford. We're a top 20 team, good team, should make it without a problem. So we play the first day. They have us going off first thing in the morning. So it's like lunchtime, East Coast time. We play great. The next day, we have literally the last tee times. So we tee off at like 5 in the afternoon. Well, two whatever their time, but it's like 5 Eastern time, right? So we finish at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night because college golf is never fast. And we really saw about 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock at night, which would have been East Coast time, our team just started making bad errors. You could see just got deflated, got tired. And we did not prepare them for that. We didn't even think of that as being an issue. The good news is we played great the next day because we had early tee times again. And we limped in, I think, on the last spot to go to Nationals that year. So 2 years later, we get sent to Stanford again. What did we do? We did practices at 9 o'clock at night, indoors, hitting balls until 11, 12 o'clock at night, just saying, hey, these weeks leading in, we are going to be prepared. We are going to stay up. We are going to make sure that we are set for where we're going. But I'll never forget standing there and watching the team just last 3 holes just completely deflate. And there was nothing we could do. I mean, as a coaching staff, we're just standing there and you're just like, oh, I just hope we can give ourselves a chance for tomorrow. And we did. But it was, I mean, we went from probably going into the last 3 holes, we were probably just a couple over par. And I think we left it like, as a team, like 15 over. I mean, we were basically the last 3 holes, on average, our girls were basically bogey plus finishing. And we were just like, row. But, you know, live and learn. So, like I said, 2 years later, we were ready.
Yeah.
We weren't going to make that mistake again. But so let's talk about preparations on a big event. What would that kind of look like in your mind, Mike, coming into an event, like the weeks leading in? Kind of how do you ramp up as you're getting closer to the event? And then how do you get them to think that this event's, we know it's bigger, but put it in perspective where they don't make it this big shiny object that's just unattainable.
Yeah. That process is multifactorial, really. I think there's a number of different issues that you'd want to have dealt with over time to be prepared for an event that is going to ratchet up the importance in their minds. And so you're basically doing that, at least I am. I'm doing that as we're working together over time for any event at all. And therefore, I think about Rory McIlroy and all the different mindset approaches he tried for the Masters, trying to figure out how to make it really important, make it not important, and all the things in between. And overall, that's an interesting one. I think there could be some individual differences there, but I would say that the number one thing for me is helping them identify and reduce any internal conflicts about anything, because it's the conflicts that are going to create all the problems in my mind. And those are often motivational conflicts, but they can be conflicts in terms of how to hit certain shots, how to go about swinging the golf club. And they're still not sure of how they want to go about doing that, which swing fields they're going to have. What's the best way to play this particular course? The week ahead of time, what do you do? Do you, like you had asked, do you ratchet that up and put a whole lot more practice time in, or do you kind of sail in? How much do you put in to technique, and how much do you finally do some performance practice? But really, mentally is where I particularly put my emphasis. And most of the people I work with have swing coaches, and so they're oftentimes helping them do some of that other kind of performance and preparation. So for me, I want to make sure that the motives they have for playing are the ones that are going to foster their performance, or at least foster their ability to deal with anything that's going to happen during the performance. And that is that whole perspective taking stuff. And that takes value identification. That takes a genuine understanding of what they really care about in the game, other than winning, other than the ranking at the end, the position in relation to others. Not that that's not important either, but I don't typically like making that the goal. I haven't had hardly seen any success with players where they're trying to win while they're on the golf course. And that if they want to win, great, but that becomes a background deal during the actual round. That can help with their preparation, certainly, so they can determine what's it going to take for me to be prepared to do as well as I possibly can with giving myself a chance to win. But I want them to have certain goals for the round that they can do that are unrelated to the outcome, certainly. And those goals are typically process goals in the mind. Those are goals related to what they can do mentally. What can they can do if they have a caddy? How about their communication with their caddy? How are they going to do that? How are you going to go about your decision making? What are you going to pay attention to? All of those things to me do matter, and they need to be prepared for, so that when they get to the big event, they've already done that. They've already experienced it, and they already know the benefits of doing it. Because if they haven't put it into play already, and then they're supposed to just put it into play in the big event, they don't typically have as easy of a time committing to it. So
Yeah.
if you have seen the evidence for these mental goals, it's so much easier to keep doing it in the event. So those are the areas that I tend to really focus on in preparation, and sometimes I'll definitely guide some people in terms of the technique stuff because they don't have necessarily a swing coach that can help them do that. But other than
Yeah.
that, I'm a mental coach, and so I'm going to pretty much emphasize those kinds of things. And it's all a synergy, with
Yeah.
the swing coach. And I think the best scenarios, especially if it's a professional, is that you have conversations with all the team members and you know exactly what everybody's thinking and you have that unified message, and so that you're all clear on what everybody's doing and what the player is going to end up doing, and so that there's no conflicts. That is, to me, the number one key. And there are
Yeah.
so many that can find their way into the person's uh, golf game.
Yeah. It is pretty amazing. How about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, Mike and I have had the pleasure of working together with a couple different players, and we talk often at different times about different things. But preparation certainly plays a big role in, from an instruction standpoint, is the pre-work before the event. And then I would tell you the preparation for the things that you really can't control. So, course conditions, wind, those kinds of things. Just having the resources and doing the pre-work so you know that the wind, if it's going to blow out of a certain direction one day, that it's going to change the next day, and you know about how much it's going to change, and you know how that's going to affect your sight line or your target line, and um, you're paying attention to if it's certainly a higher level of wind, that you have a downgrain, downwind putt downhill, then you're going to pay more attention to those kinds of things. But I would tell you that all of that stuff is really once you're on site, and that you're adapting to those course conditions, you're adapting to those changing environments, and know that they're going to change, and know that that's okay, and know that you have the skill and preparation to be able to adapt to those and embrace those. But that only comes from the work you do, I would tell you, starting 30 days prior to the event, which is mapping out the golf course, knowing your clubs you're going to be hitting, especially if you're just playing a member guest at a different event, looking at the weather and the wind, 2 days before the event, the days of the event, and then the 2 days after the event, and kind of marking the wind direction. If you're a decent ball striker and you can get it online, that you have the skill to know that I need to move this sight line to this side. And then there's so many good apps out there that you can use to assist you in that, or just the good old school way of a yardage book, which I literally cannot tell you how important it is for us to sit down with players at all levels. And I'll start with just, elite juniors or good player juniors, and get them to write down an old school yardage book, and write numbers in it, and understand how to do that, what the yardage is to the front, what your whole location sheet means. Those are really valuable, tangible resources that help you invest a bigger belief and a deeper rooted um, mindset to be able to know that you're going to be successful and that you've done the work prior to coming into the event, that you can just go in there and adapt and go play the golf course, not play the other people, but play the golf course.
Oh no, it's much more fun to play the other people.
Chris, I bet a lot of people, or those who would be listening who haven't heard you say that before, would be quite surprised to think that preparation would start 30 days before the event. Could you
Oh,
speak
yeah.
more about that? Because that's really fascinating.
Yeah, so there are certain things that you do. I would tell you between a 30 to a 15-day window, and you may be preparing for multiple events at once if you have 10 days to 2 weeks between events or within that range. But 30 to 15. So you've done your pre-work to look online or to get a digital yardage book or to get your and I won't set a particular brand of yardage book, but whatever one that you tend to use or whatever app you tend to use. You know what tees you're playing. You've looked at the scorecard from the tournament website. You already know your distances, so how far you hit your tee shot. You know what your dispersions are, right and left on your tee shot, so you know about how much yardage you're going to have in. And you start writing down, I'm going to hit driver on this hole, 8-iron. I'm going to hit driver, 5-wood, 50-degree wedge on the second hole, which is a par 5. I'm going to hit 7-iron on the third hole, which is a par 3. So that's the 30 to 15-day window. Once you're 15 to 10 days window, you're already starting to hit those golf clubs, those frequency of shots on the range. And occasionally you start from 10 to 5 days, you pour that into very little range time into on-course time, where you take those yardages, those scenarios that win pre-work, and you try and find a hole at your home golf course and you tee it up in the fairway from that yardage and hit to an actual green. So you're starting to get more and more stimulation from the environment, more and more stimulation from the aesthetics, the wind, and managing those expectations to know certain criteria, depending on the player, what your dispersion should be and what you're trying to achieve. And then 5 days, you should know the course conditions at the facility you're going to play at. You should be finding those conditions locally around you if it's a long distance to travel to the tournament site. If it's bluegrass or fescue or zoysia or paspalum, whatever it might be, you're trying to create as close a scenario to those shots as you're going to have to hit those shots, to get lie prediction out of the rough, to get tight firm lies out of the fairway, pitching uphill, upgrade, into the green. And then once you're on site, so that would be P1, which is practice round 1. Usually for most players, that's the day before potentially. A practice round is simply confirming your sight lines, confirming wind, but you spend a majority of the time working on your short game, wedge play, bunker shots, and then speed control around the greens. And practice rounds should be a very stress-free, chill environment. It is there for rest and observation. It is not for what kind of score can I shoot today to predict what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Well said.
They put that word in front of it. It's called practice. Right?
Thanks. That was
I
great.
agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, I think every athlete needs different components coming into an event. Being a college coach, you'd have 5 players playing. Each 5 we'd have the premise. We have 7 days, 10 days leading in. This is what we're kind of do. A lot of the same stuff we're mapping out, figuring out what shots. But, like I said, we had some players that would be on the course a little bit more earlier, and we'd have some people that be on the range. I'd like a Nick Faldo type that would just mechanically wanted their swing to be everything just working exactly right. So you had those tinkerers, mechanics. So you would give the mechanics a little bit more time on the range, where kind of the free runners, you put them out on the course a little bit earlier and play it a little bit different. But I love that idea. It's prepping. It's doing whatever it takes the athlete to be ready. So when they show up day one, first round, that they're ready to play golf and not worrying about all the other things in golf, which can, and definitely if you're traveling inside of golf, we'll segue into the environmental conditions. And we're not just talking wind, we're talking travel, we're talking nerves, we're talking relatives showing up, the crowd, we're talking coaches that coach you, but they've never been to the venue with you. And then all of a sudden they show up because it's a big event. So we're talking all the periphery of noise that comes along with you. And like I said, a college coach, college team, maybe parents are coming in, grandparents are flying in. Maybe they don't understand golf. Like there's those components. So how would you, Chris, try to get the athlete to understand that there's going to be just as much chaos leading into that 1 or 2 days going into a venue as probably more than they're going to ever see on the golf course?
Yeah. Speaking on college golf, you have an amazing perspective of that. So do I, and many of us do. But, the travel alone, I tell all players, expect flight delays, right?
Expect everything to be delayed.
You need to prepare. Expect the coach didn't get the right rental van, right? Expect that, if you're in X city, that the coach is going to book a flight out of Y city and you're going to drive 2 hours to the airport and they're going to ask you, just expect that, because it's probably going to happen, especially, at mid-major D1 schools, top 25, just jump on the plane out of Charlottesville and you're good to go. But you're gonna have chaos. You're gonna have unexpected situations. You're gonna have weather delays, and not to mention from a player standpoint, especially if it's a freshman traveling to an event their first time, they don't know who they're going to room with. They don't know what that's going to be like. They've not even been in school 3 weeks, right? And they've already been dumped in with a new roommate, and now they're going to go room with somebody they just kind of been practicing with and playing with on the team. And I said, there are many things that you can control, and you can control the thermostat in the room, right? You can control that if you guys decide you're going to get up at 7, then set it for 6:50. So you get in there first. You do your routine first. That you're setting the environment instead of having to respond and being behind another player's general. And you may not know them at that point, so they might just be, no big deal. I'm just going to kind of cruise through my routine in the morning, and many of those players don't have one. But then that throws you off yours. But this is not only a team, but it's also an individual kind of sport where, when you get out of your routine, then that affects your whole demeanor, which then leads into traffic to the golf course to get to the range on time. And now all of a sudden, instead of having an hour and 15 minutes to warm up, we got 45 minutes to warm up. Or, a shotgun start and it's a rain delay and all teams are on the range at one time. How do you manage those things? Preparing them for those types of events is really important.
I agree there. How about yourself, Mike?
Well, I think it's important to gauge what happens to their belief when these things happen. Because a lot of people, they have this idea of cause and effect in terms of how they play their best. And it's usually when the conditions are ideal. And so I would want them to do a pre-assessment of the cause and effect of how well they can play, and to see if any of those changes that could occur that you would want to try to anticipate, that you don't want to be there but could, to see how they might affect their play. And we would want to talk about that up front. So you would want to see if you think you have to warm up to play well. And if you think you have to warm up a certain amount of time, then and you really believe that, let's start figuring out whether that belief is true. So let's get you out there and have you play some rounds, maybe a couple, and go for 20 minutes, 10 minutes, or maybe you warm up without hitting a ball and you do so in the hotel room or just your own living room and see what you can do. And then figure out what happens, and then when you figure that out, you'll be able to figure out a strategy. Maybe you can adjust it. Then you do it again at some other time. I just really think that the problem that occurs is that they lose their belief in their ability to play well because of these things that happen. Oh, rain delay. Oh, I don't play well with rain delays. That's or it's always a bad break. I'm always playing well, and it's a rain delay. Well, let's just figure out how that can work and whether or not your belief is true. And usually, when in my experience, it's not ever true. Those things that they're worried about aren't true. They realize I could actually still play well given all of these strange things that might happen. So that would be, from my point of view, what I would want to be sure that they had already done the work, so their belief in their ability to play well is still intact, no matter what happens.
No, I agree. I love that. We used to do that with the team all the time. We'd be like, all right, first tee, go. No warm up, go. Because we're going to play an event where at one point we're going to go. Like you literally have 3 minutes before you're going to tee it up. Do what you can do to get ready, go. And then we'd be like, hey, now we got a 2-hour hangout. How are you going to eat up 2 hours? Are you going to go hit balls and do stuff that you normally don't do in your warm up to kill time? Is that really beneficial? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So we used to do that all the time, where we would increase and decrease times and just, again, adapt, figure it out. All right. But no, I would say between boyfriend, girlfriend, parents coming, flights needed, hotels booked, rental cars, there's so much in that chain that can go wrong. I mean, completely. And you did everything right. Like, we've been at many counters and going, okay, we're here to pick up our 15-passenger van. Yeah, we don't have any. Well, we have a reservation here that says you have a... So we have a minivan and we have a pickup truck. All right, throw the gloves in the back of the pickup truck. One person sits in front, the rest of you jump in the minivan with the other coach. Like, so again, the beauty of all of it, we would tell every athlete, be prepared. We're traveling. We know something's going to break. We know something's going to go wrong. We're all just going to look at it and laugh because we know it's coming. Yeah. We don't know when it's going to show up, but at some point we're all going to sit there and laugh at each other because we know bad is getting ready to happen. And if you take that attitude going into travel, it's so much more fun.
Yeah.
Because when they do come on and go, yeah, the flight's delayed. Now we have to fly you in. You're going to Dallas, Texas. Well, we can fly you into Jackson, Mississippi. How long of a drive is that? Oh, about 4.5. Roger. So we're on the phone making rental car reservations, so we know we're going to land and we're going to hightail it to Dallas or via whatever. So I think just having the understanding of the golf course is your safe space. Once you get there, it's pretty safe. The leading into the golf course, that's chaos. I mean, ask Scotty Scheffler.
Right.
The end of the golf course is chaos sometimes. So I think just having that mindset of being prepared for the unexpected, but knowing that once I'm at the golf course, no matter what the situation is, I know I can get ready to go play the game I need to go play.
Exactly.
And I think that attitude just carries through for the most part. So let's take it now. We've all the travel nightmares are over. We've prepared. We're at the venue. Mike, we're the night before. I have a mid-morning tee time. And what are you going to tell your athlete? We're eating dinner. What are we going to tell them?
Well, I think, Chris, you'd agree with me here. We would hope that they'd feel really prepared by that point in time.
We hope so.
Agree.
So if they're prepared, then it's about doing whatever they really want to do. That to me is important. And that could be hanging out with your family. It could be hanging out with your friends. You could be playing a game, socializing, or if they're by themselves, it's doing whatever they're going to do that can provide some sense of just non-golf, non-tournament thought processes. Or if they feel like they need to shore up a little bit on the motivation and the goal stuff to be sure that they're in a good place there and to redirect themselves in a good place, then do a little of that at night if they want to. I just think the night before, is about letting yourself be relaxed as much as you can, and enjoy whatever you've got going at your venue that you're at. The next morning, then, of course, that's going to be varied. In terms of people's different preparation. But have your good breakfast that you like to eat. Simple as that. You're making sure you're getting up in time. If you're in control of that, which you usually are, get up in time where you can move fairly slowly at a good normal pace. Have your food, know what time you want to get there, know how you're going to get there. Um, all of that, just basic stuff. And then you go through your normal warm up preparation routine, and remind yourself again, what are your on course goals that day? I just think that is the most important piece to be truly prepared in something that you can do, and something you've already done hopefully several times before, or many times before, and so you know exactly what to do. But those little reminders are really important before you head off to the first tee. So those are some basic thoughts I have.
Nice. Chris, how about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Being able to be the master of distraction, I think that's huge. And being able, whether it's, a Netflix series that you can dive into and kind of just kind of move away from the moment of the event, and that's where it starts. A good movie series where it starts to become something where you start to manage late versus early tee times, because there are times where the better you play, the later you're going to play, especially on the weekend. So now all of a sudden you got all this time in the morning. You need to find this great thing to do, or this thing to immerse yourself in, to kind of recalibrate your timeline or your time frame. We know it's difficult to um, manage and kind of focus the thought. But if you have something that you're interested in that you just can't wait, whether it's a good book or a good series, a good documentary, whatever it might be, an audio, it could be anything. Uh, but it takes you away from the moment of where you are until the timeline says, okay, we need to lock in and get focused on the next step to prepare for the next move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to what you're saying there, that it's so common for people to think that if they want to achieve something, they've got to think about it all the time. And that's what
Oh,
happens. They're at night, they're there at night, they have nothing to do with the golf, but they think they have to think about it. And it's what happens to worriers, etc. And they don't have to. And that's a very common thing that I see a lot, that we have to deal with and address. So that would be something I would say. It's probably easy to say, hey, have fun the night before, enjoy it. Make sure that your energy is staying up because you're doing something interesting and fun. That'll help your energy. But if they've got that false assumption that you've got to try to control the next day tonight through your thinking, then you're gonna have to address that one as well.
Yeah. No, I think so now we're teeing it up. We're day one, day two. We're in the mix. We're kind of pleased where we're at. What is one or two things that athletes do at this point that just wreck the show? So maybe we just made the cut. Well, maybe my goal was to make the cut, and I actually ended up on top of the bubble. Awesome. But what are one or two things that you see that athlete do that, like, they're managing it pretty good, and then they're coming into the weekend, again, that pressure, everything just clicks up one more time. You're in that final group, final multiple pairings coming in. You got a shot. What do you see? It's great to say this is ideally what's going to happen, but what's one or two things that you've seen where an athlete is just poop the bed?
Yeah, they change their goals.
Yep.
That's what I see. They change their goals. Now, if they're in contention, now they're closer to something, and as they get closer to it, then they start valuing it even higher and making that temptation make an effect on what they're trying to do. And of course, that's not what they did the first 2 days, and so that's a big one. I see that a lot in professional golf. Like, everybody says Saturday is moving day. Well, that's a wish for people to make, but to me, I would want to help somebody who's playing tour golf in a 4-day event. That who says that Saturday's the moving day? Why isn't Thursday, Friday, and Sunday moving too? What does it really mean to you? Do you change your goals because it's supposed to be moving day and all that? So that's stuff that I would want to be sure that they just don't fall for that kind of language that comes from the media. Don't go that
Yeah,
direction.
the media is always out looking out for you, man.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know what you're about.
It's like the lead. It's like they love who's in the lead. It's the
Yeah.
biggest thing in the world. If somebody now it's Saturday or Friday even, and now somebody just got into the lead by one stroke. It means nothing. It
And
absolutely means nothing if you're in the lead or you're not. And that's what I try to help people understand and try to go there. So like, okay, we all know that how quickly that lead changes. It means nothing. It's only an artifact of the media that makes it more interesting for the viewer. In my mind, that's all it is. So that would be another thing that could happen. All of a sudden, they get into a lead, and how often have we seen? All of a sudden, now they just bogey and bogey 2 in a row because they just realize they're in the lead. It's just
that's right.
their goals change. That's what happens.
And the whole moving day thing, the part that always drives me crazy is if it's moving day, that means Thursday, Friday, you didn't do your job. You put yourself so far down that you have to move on Saturday. Like, I have to shoot 63 to get in the
Right.
mix.
Yeah.
And then we all
Exactly.
know if you shoot at 63 the next day, you tend to come back to earth. So even though on moving day you make this huge move, usually means on final day your gas is used up and you're just kind of out there. But no, the media movie day always sounds good. What do you think, Chris? What are one or two things where you see an athlete just you're in your head, you're like, I know this athlete well enough, and they're in this situation, this is probably what's going to happen.
I would say if I had to give one answer, it would be they changed the plan, and their plan or their agenda changes simply for, obviously, as Mike said, motivation. But for example, they know they're close to the cut line. So you have players that are going to play, most of the players are going to probably play a little bit more aggressive to try and make the cut. And then you have a smaller percentage of players that are probably going to just get it in the house and hope the cut moves, right? So they change the plan when you start playing more aggressive. You start changing sight lines. You start going for pins that are 5 off, and it's just, and you're going to end up making big numbers. And if you don't believe that, then you didn't watch the PGA where a player was trying to win the tournament and he paid the consequence for trying to win the tournament on Sunday. John was clearly trying to win the event, and he wanted to win the event, and that was his goal or his motivation, and the end result caught up with him. Granted, there were some things in there, but there's no way he would go for that hole on 17 without that scenario being that criteria and being what it was, right? He made that event a high priority, and he was willing to take the risk. So that would be the big thing, is that that would be the number one key. And then you abandon when you do that, now you have really abandoned all the preparation leading up to the event that allowed you to be successful. And so now it starts to snowball.
Yeah, I see that. And what I see a lot of times too, especially like people looking less professionally, looking maybe collegiate, junior, they go to a big event or, they qualify for something, and then they try to change who they are. So we used to have players that would drink cappuccinos every day, and then they would go to an event and wouldn't drink coffee. And I'm like, if caffeine is part of your regimen, for you to just cold quit caffeine, you're gonna have some consequences there. So I think a lot of times, again, I don't know why and what people think, but going into a lot of events, we had one player that would run out of gas about 9-10 holes in. Like, we started to notice what's going on, and we literally asked her, we're like, what's going on? And she goes, well, I usually have 2 cups of coffee every morning. I go, well, I've noticed on all these tournaments you drink no coffee. She goes, well, I'm trying to be prepared. I'm like, no. So we used to feed her Cokes We'd give her a Coca-Cola. Best we could do. They didn't have, the caffeine sodas really weren't around then. But we would give her a Coke at the turn to give her that little bit of caffeine, give her a little bit of that sugar because again, it wasn't a coffee. It was a coffee with gobs of stuff in it. So at the turn, we'd give her a soda, and we were able to basically get her to play better because her body needed these chemicals that she was, for some reason, refusing to put in her system for this event. And we're just like, what are you doing? So I think, again, the athlete needs to understand who they are, what they do. As they're training, leading into event, you got to keep that going. You just don't eat like a 6 egg omelet every morning and then show up at the event and have granola. Like, that is not what we're trying to accomplish here. But I would say kind of along your lines, motivation, but I think they try to be something different.
Yeah.
All right. For whatever reason, they're trying to be something other than what got them to that point. I always stress that every athlete, you got here for a reason. Like, you've earned your way here. Like, you deserve to be here. Now let's do all the things that you've done you deserve this. Let's just continue that and keep kind of chiseling on the edges and see if we can make it a little bit smarter, a little bit better. But I think that concept, and I see it a lot of times on members, a lot of club championships, like these guys and gals just try to be somebody different. It's like, I would love to play against somebody trying to be different, because I will own you in that event. I'll be like, I can't wait for this guy to tee it up with me, especially if I know you're trying to be different. I'll remind you on that in hole 1, hole 2, hole 3. Nothing wrong with gamesmanship. But I think just that idea of trying to be different or better at a venue, opposed to, you just got to be you,
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson's got to be Dustin Johnson. Like John Daly's slamming vodkas and beers, and Tiger Woods going to work out. Those are guys doing what they need to do to prepare for the next day. And like I said, putting John Daly into a workout regimen would probably hurt John Daly. And then putting Tiger on a 30-pack of beer, I would imagine would hurt Tiger pretty bad. So it's that concept once again. But as we finish this baby up, I think the goal mine and kind of what do you learn about an event, what can be taken, whether you won, lost, made the cut, missed the cut, whatever that is. I think that reflection period after an event. And I think a lot of athletes, I know the tour does it really well, but I would say most members don't, a lot of collegians don't, that reflection after the round where you kind of go through the muck and find those nuggets that, man, I can build off of that, or I just learned this for the next time in that situation. So Mike, give us a little idea on kind of that reflection period and what should the athlete really be kind of trying to take in after an event?
Well, I would focus on the same things that they wanted to achieve mentally, emotionally, that are more under their control. So number one, I'd like to ask, how much energy did you have?
Yeah.
And because that's a big deal. And then what were your emotions during the round? And those are only the start, and then you get more follow-up questions from there to understand a little better. Number three, where was your focus? Where was your attention throughout the round at different places? And of course, you're trying to figure out what they're doing well, but also the things where they realize that had an impact, maybe negatively as well. Number four, what were your goals and what was your motivation during the round? And then finally, how did you go about your decision making? To me, those five are going to take care of so much. And then from there, Chris will bring in some other things, I'm sure. But I would also want to pinpoint, what are a couple of those areas that you can do much better the next day if you still have the tournament the next day or the next tournament down the road. And then figure out how you're going to go about doing that. So I'd want to do an analysis. So I'd like to do a review of the round with them, so we can dig into those five are. You're going to pretty much deal with every aspect of the mental and emotional game when you deal with those five.
Nice. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'd give it two parts. One is I would focus on how well did I execute the process and the discipline during the round that I was trying to achieve. For example, that, how well did I manage the distractions? How well did I stick to the process of trying to keep my feels and my swing the same without any regard for the importance of a shot, or how well did I manage that? And then secondary, I would certainly put just as equal, is that you look at the data from the round statistically without emotion. I think it's important to journal right after your round that, I felt like I did this well, I felt like I did not do this well, and get that down, and then let's compare that to what the actual stats and the numbers say. Because when you look at numbers versus kind of how you valued the round emotionally, you're going to probably get some different outcomes. They generally won't match up. Very rarely do they. But then you can go, okay, well, I felt like I did this really well, or I felt like I did not do this well. And the numbers will say, well, based on what your skill level is, whether you're a club golfer or whether you're a D1 collegiate golfer or whether you're a tour player golfer, what is the comparison? What is the best version of me when I do it my best versus not comparing yourself to someone else? And was I better than my average is really important when you're looking at stuff statistically. So taking those two elements and then being able to then apply them to your current game plan or your current preparation plan and adapt that plan and mold and model that plan so that it better prepares you for the next event.
That's good. I really
Nice.
like that myself. And I think if you don't connect all these mental factors with the actual performance, the swing, certain holes, and all of that, then you lose most of it, because you got to connect the actual game with all that mental. And I think that's what I hear Chris saying as well.
No, I agree. I think, it's the reflection period, again, is your ability to ideally look at it even keeled and say, the score's a score. There's nothing I can do about it. From the scoring data, what happened? And from what happened, what can I do to get better? What things am I doing really, really well? Because you've done every tournament, you've done something really, really well. And you've probably done something that needs some work. And then, like I said, I always love to close the loop. Whatever I need to work on, how many days do I have between my next event? What can I do to shut that down or to tighten that up before my next event? And that releases anxieties because now I have a plan. I have a set. I can go do this, opposed to my short game's just trash. I'm done. No, there's some components we can fix between now and 3 days from now, or 10 days from now. So I think that reflection period of having that ability to look across everything, be non-judgmental. It is what it is. It happened. Can't do anything about it anymore, but what can I do to prepare to be better next time? And if you kind of take that attitude into any walk of life and anything you do, if you can always have that reflection period of like, what just happened? What does this mean? And what can I learn and build off of this? It's just makes life so much easier to get better. Or do none of that and be what you are. Continuously. Continuously. It just never changes. But all right, we're gonna wrap this puppy up. We're at 53 minutes. Let's wrap this up with kind of a one-liner. What would be a mindset shift or some bit of advice for a golfer that has a big event coming up, maybe this weekend or maybe next week? What's that one piece that you could give them a good nugget to prepare them for that event coming up? And we'll start with Chris. What would be one good nugget you'd give a player? Because again, this is the first time they're coming to see you, Chris. They've never met you, and they have the biggest event of their life in 3 days. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. You're a week out. You got what you got. Let's learn how to aim what you got right now, right? But I would honestly say that for a player to understand as they play this event that they don't let the moment define them, they define the moment. And that gives them an opportunity to be more focused on each shot. It allows them to not put a higher importance on one shot than another. And that as they're working on their game leading into this event, there are really three areas that they want to pay attention to. Effective tee shots, so that they're in play or in the fairway or slightly in the rough, but we don't have any out of position shots, punch outs, or out of bounds. So tee shots, effective, really important. Not missing any greens inside of 50 yards. Spend this week working on that from rough, fairway, and bunkers, and then work on your speed control and lag putting. And that's all I would work on. I wouldn't make change technically, but I would just refine what I have in those three areas and learn to aim that tee shot so it finishes effective in the fairway or slightly in the rough.
Cool.
Nice. How about you, Mike?
Well, if I had one conversation with the person and 3 days later they have the event, that's definitely happened plenty of times, it seems like, over the years. So I know exactly what I would do because I've done it. So I want to make sure that they organize their mind around certain phases of the golf swing pre. I put it into 5, but I won't go into all that today. But I want them to know really simply what are the phases. And if they have their own phases, we'll go with their phases, whatever they already got. Then I want them to understand the power of the goal, because that is what's going to give them the most possibility to move their mind in the proper direction and give themselves the best chance to swing the way they know how to swing and hit their shots the way they know how to hit. And so I'm going to help them understand the power of these goals, and then we're going to identify what the best goal is and make sure that they are the ones thinking through this based on their best performances in the past. So we're going to bring back that, and then we're going to help them understand what those best goals are, and then write those best goals for each phase. And that's what you do. And if you're off, all you do is redirect to the goal. There's your mental plan. That's what you do. To me, it's simple. It doesn't take that long. An hour conversation, we can get there definitely every time. And then they'll have something on a card they can put in their bag. They'll have it set. They'll have a reminder. And the next 3 days, you're going to play with that. So you got at least a couple days to be able to put it into play. And it's not difficult. It's just about making sure that you know exactly where you want to, what goal you want to have at any given moment. And then to me, that gives them the best chance. I just did that, about 2 months ago with a D1 player. Had an event that she hadn't been playing well, and we just did that, and she got a top 10, first top 10 of the year. And
Nice.
why? Because she was actually able to do that pretty well. It wasn't perfect. You're not going to be perfect on it, but it's going to allow you to feel as though you're doing the thing that matters the most, and that really can help them make a commitment to what they're trying to do on the course. So that would be it.
So nice. So Mike just said if you work with him, he guarantees you a top 10 in your next event. I don't know about you, Chris, but that's what I heard. Maybe not guarantee. Maybe not that, but that's what I heard. No. I would tell any athlete, don't reinvent the wheel. When you're at the event, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to change your swing. Don't try to do anything new. It's kind of just understand your game. At venue, be simple in your process. Fundamentals. Am my setup good? Because if my setup's good, my swing's probably going to be good. If my mental processing's good, it's probably going to remain good. So again, go back to your fundamentals. Keep it simple. Because again, golf is variation on top of variation. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in one piece. And my other piece of advice, other than fundamentals, is do not create issues on the ranges or the putting greens pre and post rounds. Those are times to fix components, get ready for an event. Do not create issues. Don't hit perfect. Don't go through the entire bag on the range and hit everything really good. And instead of walking away, let me hit one more. And then, oh, wait, that faded 2 yards more than I wanted. Let me fix that real quick. Oh, my God, it faded 3 more yards that time. Oh, my God, I have an issue. No, you don't. There's no issue. The issue is you. Get the hell off the range. you are sabotage mode right now. So I would say collegiately, that was probably the biggest thing I had to fight players on was self-sabotage. Creating issues where there's not, like, you've never sliced the ball. You're a draw player, and then on the range you hit a slice and you think you got to rework no, go home, go to bed, wake up in the morning. It won't be there, pretty sure. And if it is, we'll worry about it then. But I think that whole reinventing the, self-sabotage, especially for amateur golfers, is massive. They see one bad swing, one bad component, and it just steers them in a direction that whiskey couldn't even help. But other than that, Chris, let everyone know how they can find you, and then we'll do the same thing with Mike, and we'll wrap this puppy up.
You can find me at chrisgeorgegolf.com.
Chris
on Instagram, Chris_George_golf.
A lot of underscores. Does that mean going under par? See, Chris just guaranteed going under par if you work with him. That's what I heard. Mike, where can they find you?
They can go to the website called themotivationgame.com.
Nice. And of course, I'm Brian Bailey, golfcast.com. Come drink a whiskey. Let's play some golf together. Let's have fun. I'm on the much more fun side. These guys are, working with pros. I'm much more on the fun side I'm on the downhill side of life. I'm enjoying a good whiskey and a good round of golf. So, thank you, gentlemen. We'll do this again. And until then, thank everybody for listening, and we will talk to you again in the future. Cheers.
Thanks.